Life and business are so much more fun when you get to play. So why don't we incorporate play into every single thing we do? That's why I have Anja here, and she is going to tell us a little bit about herself, why this matters to her, and why it should matter to you. Anja, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'm so excited to be here. And I think this is just the perfect opportunity if you're interested in not just having more fun in your business, but in your life. I think we as humans, like we were born to play more, like we are supposed to play more. And by adding more gamification and understanding psychology, we're actually able to have more fun in the way we build our strategies and the way we build our marketing and all in all have fun. And so that's what I do. I work on strategies of making them come alive so that you can have more fun in your business and in your life.
That's so fun. And like, honestly, like, we just said fun, fun, fun. How many times can we say fun at the beginning of an episode? Fun. It's true though. If it's not fun, if what you're doing isn't fun, if it doesn't feel intrinsically interesting in some capacity, then why do you want to do it? This is where you get the people who are rolling their eyes when they've got to do marketing, or when they're, or they make a funny face when they've got to do market research or something to that effect. It's like, well, actually, let's make this a game. Let's make this interesting to you. What is it? What is one thing about what you need to do that you could entertain the thought of doing in a more playful capacity? Because something you said actually piqued my interest right away. I thought, oh, okay, hold on. You mentioned learning. I believe maybe you didn't mention, but I made a connection to learning.
Okay.
And isn't it? You could probably help me with the statistic better than I can remember it. But isn't it that, like, when you're learning, if you just learn something in the traditional sense of it, it takes like 20 or 30 times to actually learn it. But if you learn it through play, it takes like one time.
I don't know the statistics, but I know that you learn a lot faster and you actually learn even more if you use curiosity. So by having like curiosity embedded in the way you teach helps you actually leverage different parts of your brain in a way that holds more information, meaning you are smarter only by the person that's teaching keeping you curious.
That's so okay. So now I'm curious. Now I'm
Right?
curious. I don't think I don't think I'm ever not curious, if I'm being perfectly honest. That's like one of my flags. But correct me if I'm wrong. Is what you just said the responsibility of maintaining curiosity in both the hands of the teacher and the learner?
I would say so. I would say it's probably more in the teacher than in the learner. Because, especially like, depending on what you do, but it's very hard to keep yourself curious in a task that you know what to do. If I know that I need to put the dishes away, that's not going to be very curious. I know what that's going to look like, right? But like, let's say that you're told to do market research instead of kind of doing it a very standard way, you could utilize chat GTP and say, can you create a scavenger hunt for me to market research this specific topic? And they will actually give you a recipe of how to do it, right? Quite funny. So then suddenly you're gamification your own process. But again, you probably already know some of the things, but you're now curious about how it will feel like to do it. So you're not curious about the task, you're curious about the experience. So you can bring the curiosity in the way you learn something, but also curious about the experience, which kind of brings it back to psychology, different ways of who we are, and different buyers and different types of people have different triggers and different things we care about, and based on that, we can kind of pull in different parts of our, I don't know, our brain or the way that we're wired to trigger different parts of curiosity and different ways of gamification of different aspects of our life and business.
So I've got these ideas coming in. I'm like, okay, so there's so many options to do this, and you just touched on two really cool aspects of in particular marketing, because this is what we're here to talk about is marketing. And I believe that you're never not marketing. And it kind of treads that line where you need to do things. And so you can gamify your life, which includes marketing habits and the like, networking habits, etc. But then you can also gamify the way people receive your marketing. What are some of the big ideas that have come up for you and perhaps some of your clients in how they've gamified their marketing for their audience?
Sure. I will give you some of the tea. So one of the things that I learned early on, so one of the things that I loved, like when I became a coach, or when I became a strategist and I worked, consultant in that area, I got really curious about the brain. And I was like, well, how are they intrigued? Like there's a connection here that is not talked about a lot. So how do we understand how we function with the strategies that we're implementing? Because there's so much more that is not said in the strategies that we learn. People are like, post 5 times a day or write marketing. And I'm like, but what type of marketing? Why? Who? To whom? Like there's so many things that people are not really sharing. And so one of the things that I teach my clients is that there are 4 types of buyers. Like if you're going to categorize them, and so for example, one of them is analytical. It's a very easy one for me to talk about because that's how I am. I'm very analytical. I love analyzing. Probably why I became a strategist in a lot of different ways, why I love strategy and technology and all of those nitty-gritty things, right? And so for me, gamification would be validating my knowledge, would make me feel like I know something, but it will also make me curious to know if I knew something. So for example, a pop quiz where I could see if I knew the answer to something, or even better, if you had a pop quiz that only people inside your program were able to answer correctly, and you were able to tell them how and why they would be able to answer them correctly afterwards, could be a great way to market and actually sell your products in stores, for example. Just to use one, kind of try to do like a chunk in one setting there.
No, that makes sense, because I catch myself during moments when I am doing what I try not to do, and that is scrolling. Shh, and so I get in there and I love Harry Potter. We all know. Look at here they are.
Oh
They're
yeah,
having a great time.
I'm a big Harry Potter fan.
So I'm sitting there and they're like, a pop quiz. How much do you know about Harry Potter? Or better yet, did you know these hidden gems or something like that, right? And then they'll ask you things like, what did Arthur Weasley say at the breakfast table? And and it's like, obviously it's a rubber duck, and then or something, and you just I engage with that just blindly because I'm like, I know this, I totally know this, but then if I get to the end and I didn't know this, now I'm like, oh wait, hold on, now I need it entices me to engage further. And so we can do the same thing with better intention than just a silly game, but with more intention that guides people deeper into our world, to want to ask us more questions about what's next.
Yes. And I think this is where most of us is taught kind of this push and pull marketing. I'm a big fan of, we want to pull, we don't want to push. I like people to come and want to purchase from me. I want people to be a part of my world because they love what I do and they get mesmerized. I always say in one of my programs that I'm releasing and I'm talking to my team about, I'm like, I want people to feel like they're getting the letter from Hogwarts. I want them to be that excited. Like if I got that letter today, I would be out the door. I would be so, like I would be that excited. So how can we replicate that? Yeah, I'm still waiting too. And so how can we make that same experience for the different buyers? Because you have different buyers in your audience. But what we're taught very often is, you have this freebie or you do this quiz and you sell and you sell and you sell and you sell, and you're never really giving. And so one of the things that I've seen that works really good with psychology and gamification that I don't think is taught a lot, and maybe I'm being a bit of a rebel sharing it, but I'm going to share it either
This
way.
is the place to share marketing rebel experiences. So let us
Yeah.
go.
It's, instead of holding back, share more, because you can never share enough of your stuff to your audience. Like, they are still going to purchase if you give them some of your paid things. I'm not saying that you're going to give away all of your offers for free, but can you imagine if someone got really curious about what you're doing, and instead of pushing them to sell, you're now saying, who would like to see a part of what's in the first section of my X offer?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then people are like, that would be intriguing. I've been thinking about wanting to join, right? So suddenly now you're playing with them. Psychology, you're now kind of alluring them in, you're pulling, but you're not, saying, this is it, here's how to buy. You're now gonna just give them that information in a private message, in a link, however you want, without opt-in. Just
Mhm.
kind of let them experience you to build the touch points. Because we know in marketing, you need some touch points. And after COVID, we have less, what is it called? Less, like, our brains are not the same. Let's put it that way. We can't keep the
Yes.
concentration long enough. So
Right.
that means we need multiple touch points. But the psychology of this is, if they have a positive feeling of interacting with you, regardless if they use the free thing in your paid program or not, they're going to remember, oh my gosh, she gave me that free insight. I like her.
Mhm.
What's happening? Suddenly you are now having and cultivating an audience that is a lot warmer, a lot more excited and active. So when you're now starting to sell, because we do need to sell,
We run
okay?
a business. That's right.
Then it's also going to be a lot easier, because you've now kind of cultivated the fun. So they've now, instead of thinking pain, I run to you, they're thinking fun, they run towards you.
Right. Right. And that's truly everything. Whenever I'm telling somebody we're looking at conversion that feels good, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. We're not, I never encourage people to pour salt in a wound. I want you to empower people to take action that makes
Yeah.
sense for them. Now, you had
Mhm.
mentioned 4 different types of buyers. We talked about the analytical. What are some of the other ones?
So let's see if I can always remember the name. I always struggle with the English one. So it's the driven one. So these are the ones that are more, give me the actions and let's go. It's the, like, I would say it, like, for me, the word meek would be the right one, but I found a not so, because I know that's not a good word in English. That's not
Mhm.
like a,
But more
doesn't
timid or
it's kind of like they're very, I call it the connector. Like, it's very
oh,
connected. It wants to connect with people. It's more relationship oriented, but they're not so forward.
that is
Uh,
a really good word. I like that one. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely stick with connector,
yeah,
not meek.
the connector. Yes. And then you have the analytical, and then you have kind of the emotional one, which is more the experience. Like, I'm in it for the feeling of it. So, like, all of them have different triggers and different things, and you probably have all of them in your audience, right? But then there's even more, like, you can dive deeper into all of the psychology, but this is like one of the simplest things. I started teaching this like back in 2020, like with my first kind of really clients that I wanted to go deeper into the psychology with, and realized that the more they understood about the behavior of their client, the more specific and tailored they could create marketing to then focus, because we all start small. So
Mhm.
then you can create more targeted marketing for your audience to then build up momentum to, when you have enough space, build, start rooming all of your all of them, because you want to reach all of them at one point. But usually, if you pick two, you're probably going to do pretty well.
That's good. And that's really important information for everybody to kind of step into, because I know that my gut response, my knee-jerk response was like,
Mm.
oh, we could totally take all four of those dynamics and weave them into one particular method of marketing.
Yeah.
But that's the overachiever in me. Right. And so if you're looking at this as somebody who is probably an overachiever, just like myself, which many of us are in the entrepreneurial space, check yourself before you wreck yourself, Anja's saying, and pick two.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Pick two, wrap them up, do a good job, really figure it out and make sure that it's working, and then maybe weave in elements of another and so forth. I think that's invaluable advice for anything that you're doing, including even if you're here and you're like, okay, so gamification of my marketing sounds really great, but I'm not sure if I'm there yet, or I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. Even if you're looking at showing up on socials just the way you are now, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever you're hanging out, pick one. Yep. Do it well. Get to know that audience and really, and that's that psychology part of it, really understand the way they think, the way they interact, and then the way they buy.
Yep.
And then move on to,
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to repeat myself and say, and go on and add things as you go.
Yeah. And I think, if you think about it, if you are mostly on LinkedIn, I bet the majority there analytical. If you're on Instagram, I would bet the majority there are more emotional. They are looking for images about experiences. People on Facebook are more the connectors and driven. There are a good mix of them there. Like if you start looking, like the different places that you are is where they're drawn to. I'm not saying that all of them are there, because that's not true, but the majority are drawn to people. Like we like to be with people like ourselves. It's just human nature. And I think also, gamification can feel very scary. Like we're suddenly thinking like, oh, I need to develop all of these crazy things. Gamification can be you asking questions that they respond to. It can be polls. It can be like simple things where you cooperate or have your audience work with you on something. It can be them giving you feedback on something. Gamification is basically gamifying the experience, and in a game you have to all play. Like you have to touch the pad, you have to, I don't know how much you game. Your game. I'm a gamer. I love it.
I gamed until I had kids, and then once I had kids, well, life changes. So yeah. And you can't spend the time playing. I'm a Nintendo girl. I love Zelda and all that jazz. So you can't spend that time playing those video games when you've got a babe at your arm. You can't do that. And so truthfully, I've only been able to do like little bits recently, because my kids are now 5, 6, and 9. And so they're exploring that world. They're really into Mario, which lights up my heart. Let's go Super Mario all the time. The new one, I think he turns into an elephant. How fun is that?
What? I didn't know that. That sounds fun.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, so everybody needs to have a leg in the game, skin in the game when you're doing that sort of thing. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be very hard. And I think that's where it comes in, like adding some psychology. Like it sounds very big and fancy when you say psychology and gamification, and
like neuroscience. Ooh,
yeah, like people are like, oh my gosh, so fancy. But it's like, if you take a step back and you're like, okay, but why am I doing this? What's the purpose of implementing these different things? How can I, with strategy, it's from getting the clients in the door to actually or first touch points to them actually leaving and hopefully getting back in, right? That's the strategy. But if you think about it in terms of gamification, you want the whole journey to be fun. So how can you in your programs add in some elements of surprise? Like maybe you have in the middle of, let's say you have a 3-month program, and in the middle of the program you announce that they get a 15-minute call with you that they get for free. Suddenly that's a type of gamification, a gift that excites them. That's, again, what you're doing is reactivating them to think about you as something good. You gave them a gift. If they apply it or not is up to them, but the impression of you is always going to be positive. I think that's kind of the main thing. Like, utilizing psychology and gamification is less about pushing the pain, but more about becoming the person people want to hang out with, to be the person people wants to come to have their problems fixed. Like, you wouldn't go to, have you seen like Mean Girls?
Yes. Oh my goodness,
Like,
yes.
you wouldn't run to them with your problems. Like, you would go to someone else. Like, you would go to your friend that you can trust, that you have fun with, that you feel safe with. Like, that's the person you would go to.
That makes
So
so
in the
much sense.
online space, in your work, you need to start combining the building the trust and building authority together through psychology and gamification.
One of the things that I like the most about what we've been talking about is how you've brought gamification like into reality. Like, it's not hard to do. You just need to be mindful about where you're doing it and to whom you're doing it with, because it's a reciprocal action, and how you can really take that that aspect of fun, inject it into your day-to-day to get the job done for yourself, and then also to engage your audience. Like, it's mind-blowing when you break it down into its simplest form. So now that said, Anja, I need to ask you if there's any thoughts that are just ruminating in your brain that are just like, I need to say this at the end of this. Do not close this podcast until I say these words. Like, is there anything in there that's just yelling that you just need to get out? I invite you to say it now. And then, of course, tell people where to find you, because this is a conversation that needs to keep going.
Sure. So I think the last words that I would like to say is that, test it out. Don't just take it too hard. Like, just try something. If that's a story with a quiz or memes or people picking something, whatever it looks like for you that you feel like would be fun for you and your audience, test it out. If it doesn't work, great. If it works, fantastic. And then test something else. Like, start really small and then just kind of see where you're at with it. And if you ever want to follow me, you find me at Anja Consults on Instagram. I would love to chat with you. Or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to answer them. And I'm just so thankful to be here and have this conversation.
And yes, I'm definitely going to tell everybody, you definitely want to connect with Anja, because honestly, you just heard she wants to make everything fun. So even that, hey, how's it going, is going to turn into a roller coaster ride of amazing experiences. So absolutely, you want to reach out to Anja. And also, since she's on Instagram, make sure that you come over and visit with me, because we're going to be going live after this show to let everybody know a few extra little sneak tidbits that I think you're not going to want to miss. It's only a short one, so don't worry, we're not going to grapple you. For the Marketing Rebels podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe, follow, and share with your friends, because there are new episodes coming out every single week, sometimes 2 times a week. So you want to hang out with us so that you can get the tips, tricks, and trends that are coming out every single week. With that, Anja, I need to thank you again for being an amazing guest on the show, and I hope to see all of you next time. Chat soon.